Welcome back to Focus today, and this is so much fun. What a delight to have with us one of my favorite people, MeganReaganBaby.com. At least that's what I call her. Her actual name is Megan Barth. She is the founder and the proprietor of ReaganBaby.com, one of the great websites to keep you updated. ReaganBaby.com, and go there and read her articles and take a look at all the resources that are there. Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Terry. Thank you for the coffee.
Oh, you got it.
I did.
Yeah,
it's delicious.
Guaranteed to make you walk on the ceiling.
I don't pull myself off, so I'm right here.
Well, good to see you. Well, President-elect coming up with some cabinet members. What do you think so far?
You know, so far it looks really good. He's surrounded himself with experts and leaders in the field of the positions that he's put them in. You look at DeVos, who will be the education secretary, who's a champion of charter schools, who's reformed many schools in Michigan. And this is the type of approach we need in education, is to privatize education. And we need a real strong leader like DeVos in order to create that change, perhaps strip the Federal Department of Education of Common Core, is what Donald has promised. And I believe that she has promised to do as well. But then you look at his latest appointment, safety and security, Mad Dog Maddox. What a fantastic appointment. You look at the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions. You look across the board at many of his appointments, and you have outsiders coming in to create economic policy, spearheaded by Stephen Moore, which will ignite the economic sector by, reducing tax rates, getting rid of or repatriating money in investments that are overseas currently now with American companies. You look at Carrier, who agreed through negotiation and tax incentives to keep the plant in Indiana and Indianapolis. So 1,000 workers' jobs were saved in Indiana. You again look at Ford Motor Company, who is not moving their facility from Kentucky to Mexico. They're going to keep their facility in Kentucky to build a Lincoln SUV. And you look at Apple, who's now saying that they may manufacture products here in the U.S., which Tim Cook said they would never do. So we're already seeing, it's interesting because when government moves, people react, companies react. And so now government is actually moving in the direction, getting behind the American worker, which is encouraging American companies to rethink offshoring their manufacturing. So, Donald Trump has fulfilled some of his promises through not only his cabinet picks, but with Carrier as an example.
Well, what do you think he is saying that he can back up when he's not in office yet? What is he saying to convince these companies to stay put? Because he can't really promise them anything yet, and he still has to work through a Congress to deliver that promise. What do you think he's saying?
Well, I think he's just demonstrating leadership and confidence. And what this does is inspire consumer confidence, and it inspires the corporate confidence that they aren't going to be targeted through high tax rates and regulations that have basically put a stranglehold on their expansion efforts, as well as their bottom line. But then, of course, you look at his promise to renegotiate NAFTA, and all of a sudden Mexico's we're going to renegotiate that. Well, fantastic. So, these types of things are all related to what we would call the Consumer Confidence Index. And we see consumer confidence at a high. We also see borrowing for small businesses getting back up and moving in the right direction, which tells us that their entrepreneurial spirit has been completely damaged by the big, heavy-handed government and agencies that Barack Obama has used for the last 8 years against the American worker.
Wow. Let's come back to a couple of these appointments. He mentioned yesterday, it was kind of interesting how he handled it. Don't tell anybody, but I'm going to announce that General Mattis is going to be my Secretary of Defense. Perhaps the most powerful military guy since Patton. This, in our lifetime, will be the most decorated Secretary of Defense ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is a fantastic appointment. Maddox has been very outspoken as far as how he handles the enemy. He certainly can identify the enemy, and he calls out the enemy. It's called radical Islam. He understands that we are at a war with radical Islam. He understands who is inflicting much damage in other countries as well as our own country. You know, the number one duty of a president, and I think people tend to forget this after this last 8 years, is to protect our country from enemies, foreign and domestic. And we have had, in the Barack Obama administration, 13 terrorist attacks in 8 years under his watch because he refuses to name the enemy. Instead, what he does is he fights climate change. And climate change was the mortal enemy of the American people, according to Barack Obama, and it was more dangerous than terrorism. We also had a whitewashing of terrorism by this administration. We have the incident at Fort Hood called workplace violence. They even wanted to call San Bernardino gun violence and workplace violence. So we now have a commander-in-chief with a general on his side at the Department of Defense who is going to handle our enemies very swiftly, very tactfully, and they will call out the enemies by their name.
Do you think radical liberalism has hit the wall?
You know, I think it's hit the wall. However, it doesn't mean it's dead. And especially when you look at the appointment of Nancy Pelosi, and again, to lead the party, a party that was destroyed by their own hands by, you know, oh, we have 38 different genders. How many bathrooms do we need? You know, these types of issues that the Democrats ran on identity politics do not put food on the table. They ignored the American worker. They ignored the middle class. They ignored the Rust Belt. And they didn't just ignore them. They punished the middle class. And they punished the middle class through the largest tax increase called Obamacare. They also punished the middle class by trade deals and by using the EPA as a heavy hand, a regulator on the coal industry. When you have Bill Clinton on the stump for his wife saying those coal people, and that Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama is going to put coal miners out of business. Well, I think it was over 800 coal plants had closed or shuttered because of Obama's EPA. So, you know, is liberalism, radical liberalism, dead? No, because they look at Nancy Pelosi as their leader, who is, you know, basically Marx, Marx in a dress. And then you look at their perhaps appointment of the DNC leader as Keith Ellison, Congressman Keith Ellison out of Minnesota. Radical. We are talking an anti-Semite. His anti-Semitic comments, his associations with anti-Semites in the Muslim world go back decades. And these are all on record. His speeches are all on record and captured, and they're just starting to come to the surface. But the Democrats seem to want to double down on extremism and stupidity. And I say let them. It's fantastic.
Well, on the other hand, if they continue to go radically to the left, the path that they're on, and even though they've reelected Nancy Pelosi, they're sending a signal that they want to go further left. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they take the masked Democrats with them, do they?
Well, I don't think that they should have taken the mask of Democrats for a very long time. Why is it that all socialists find a home in the Democrat Party? If we look at Luis Gutierrez, he was a Marxist out of Puerto Rico who found a home in the Democrat Party as a Chicago alderman. We look at Luis Becerra, who is part of a socialist movement, a self-identified socialist, who now might be appointed as might be the Attorney General of California. But we have a whole caucus of socialists within the Democrat Party. It's interesting to me that socialists don't find a home in the Republican Party.
Interesting. All right, before I take a break, we're down to a handful of people for the big prize, the chief diplomatic position in the country as Secretary of State. You still have Romney on the list. It looks like Bolton's going to be interviewed today. Petraeus is still on the list, and Giuliani is still on the list. Where do you see this going?
I think they are all a very strong, talented group for that position. Of course, we all have heartburn when it comes to Romney because he was so publicly disrespectful to our president-elect. And early on, he tried to sabotage our nominee's campaign. to me, if Donald Trump can forgive him for that, well, then all is forgiven, because really it is between Donald Trump and Mitt Romney. But you look at the lineup, and again, Donald Trump will pick the best person for the job. Personalities aside, he will pick the best person for the job. And any one of those men, and I thank God that they're all men, because the last thing we need, Perry, is another female Secretary of State. And that is not my internal misogyny coming out. That simply is a statement that it is not an affirmative action position. We need a strong male leader. We need a place at the table with these countries that are highly despotic. They are highly misogynistic. And so it's kind of, if we have another female Secretary of State, sure, she might sit at the table, but she's not going to be respected and she's not going to be listened to.
You're one of the first conservatives I've talked to, Megan, that is kind of giving Romney a little bit of a pass. The pushback on him mostly has been negative. You agree with it?
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying, look, I have a problem with Romney. Okay, if it were me, I wouldn't select him because of the damage that he had done during my campaign. However, this is an issue between he and Donald Trump. And if Donald Trump can find it in his heart to forgive him, if this will be water under the bridge, if Romney will share his vision when it comes to the Secretary of State position, that is a decision that Donald Trump will have to make. However, as Kellyanne Conway had said, that this was a big betrayal to the base. And so if Donald Trump does pick Mitt Romney, I think that Mitt Romney is going to have to eat some crow with the American public and issue an apology or a walk back of the statements that he had made so publicly and so personally. I do have a problem with him. But again, I trust Donald Trump's leadership, and I trust the fact that he will pick the best person for the job.
There's been concern about Petraeus, even though he's extremely qualified. There's concern about him because he got booted out for sharing classified information with his girlfriend, that he probably wouldn't get through the Senate process. What do you think?
Classified information that had to do with a calendar and such, and some off-the-record conversations. We aren't talking about, assets, covert assets around the world like Hillary Clinton had shared. Is Petraeus good for the job? Yes, he's got definitely the military background, which would be good in handling, these despotic leaders, especially in the Middle East. He understands the enemy, but I would like to see a little bit less of Petraeus and a little bit less of Romney, quite frankly. Petraeus also took some interesting stances against the Second Amendment, and not saying that he is going to take those stances, and act upon them as Secretary of State. That's not his role. But I just have some questions on a variety of his stances. But again, I think that at the end of the day, Donald Trump has proved to us that the selection and the criteria by which he is vetting these appointments is stringent, and they result in fantastic leadership and very strong leadership when it comes to his main duties, which is the safety and security of this country and creating the environment to have an economic boom during his presidency.
All right, Megan, let me take a quick break. We're talking to Megan Barth. We call her Megan Reagan Baby. And her website is ReaganBaby.com. It's a must go-to website for all kinds of information. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
I'm Paulina Leiser, producer of Focus Today. Thank you for watching this video, and make sure to check our other videos at theDove.us.
Welcome back to Focus Today, and what a delight and always a lot of fun to have with us Megan Barth. We call her Megan, ReaganBaby.com. Her website is ReaganBaby.com, and as you can tell, she is really on top of a lot of the issues, and her website reflects that as well. And let me encourage you to put that on a must-watch list, ReaganBaby.com. All right, a couple of other things. What do you think about the Steve Bannon controversy?
I think it's just a whole bunch of nothing. I know Steve Bannon. He's actually a fan of Reagan Baby. He interviewed me for his XM radio show before he took a position alongside the Trump before the administration, but with the campaign. He goes way back with Andrew Breitbart and Larry Solov, who now owns and runs Breitbart.com. There is nothing anti-Semitic about Steve Bannon. There is nothing white nationalist about Steve Bannon. He is an American nationalist. He loves this country. He is an economic nationalist. He wants to make America great again. But again, the Democrats have to resort to character assassination. They have to paint everyone as racists because they can't stand on their own platform. Yet when you look at their platform of identity politics, the people that don't agree with them are racists, like Christians, for example. Christians that don't, believe in gay marriage are all of a sudden bigots, when bigotry has absolutely nothing to do with their Christianity. So this is just another Democrat tool in their playbook to whitewash their own bigotry, because when they are going to elect to head their party an anti-Semite by the name of Keith Ellison, therein lies the bigotry. When you have a bigot like Keith Ellison that may lead their party, that's the conversation that we need to have. Instead of looking, there's that. There's those two Christians down in Texas that have that show that flip houses or
that was Chip and
exactly
right.
I can't think of the Gaineses.
Gaines, right.
So BuzzFeed wants to do this whole article on, are the Gaineses homophobic? Do they have anti-gay sentiments because the church, the pastor they go, the church they go to, the pastor doesn't believe in gay marriage? Well, why don't they look at Keith Ellison's imam? When you look at the Islamic religion, they throw homosexuals off bridges or buildings. So if we want to have a real conversation about bigotry in this country, I'm all willing to have it. But to label Steve Bannon as a racist and a bigot is an absolute lie.
Yeah, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that, because that's pretty much what's coming out now. Let me ask you this on a couple of other people that seem to be in the mix, but really no announcement yet. Sarah Palin, perhaps Veterans Affairs. Your thoughts?
I know how much she loves our military. She has a son who serves, and I know that she would be a dynamo as an outsider coming in and really create reform. I would like to see someone, however, with a military background really reforming the VA. I think that would be important, especially a military member. I think there's one up from Concerned Veterans for America, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head. But he has, firsthand experience with the VA. He also has firsthand experience with PTSD and TBI, and the mental anguish that these and the disabilities that they have mentally with those afflictions from war. So I would like to see somebody with a military background head up the VA to really create reform and change from within, who understands the bureaucracy and the unions that keep the mediocrity and the lack of care going just in order to protect their own. We really need to revamp the whole VA from top to bottom to ensure that our soldiers return to open arms that will take care of them and take care of them effectively and quickly. And if they can't find that type of care in the VA, they should be able to go see a private doctor. And these are the types of reforms I would expect Sarah to make with no problem. I would just prefer somebody with a military background.
A couple of people that haven't landed anywhere yet. Mike Huckabee, there's thoughts that he might become the ambassador to Israel. Do you see him anywhere else?
I don't really. I haven't given him much consideration. I thought he was going to be the ambassador of Israel, but I guess that's just talk around the water cooler and really hasn't been solidified yet. But I do see him in that sort of role, some sort of ambassador role. Would be good as the as the face of our country. He's got just such a good way of communicating, and is just such a solid individual.
Megan, let me ask you this: why has Gingrich pulled away from Trump? I mean, he's defended him unbelievably on television, but he doesn't want to be a part of the mix. Why?
It could be a variety of reasons. He just might not want to be back in the administration. I know that his former chief of staff, Dave Bossy, is very involved in the transition team. Now, whether or not he takes a more active role in the administration waits to be seen. But Newt Gingrich has a lot of things going on, and he's got a lot of books. He's got his own company. I think that he's always a good. Sometimes being an outsider is a good thing because you can be more of a bomb thrower. And, that's why I didn't run for office. I was asked to run for office. But I thought, my role in politics is more of the exposure of the fraud and the abuse within the political system. And thereby, as an outsider, I can try to reform it by shedding light on it. And that's what I try to do at Reagan Baby. Newt Gingrich is such an ideas guy, and he has so many good ideas when it comes to multiple areas. So, could he just be an advisor? Could he be a shoulder to kind of lean on, an ear to bend when there needs some advice, whether it's in various agencies? He's so well versed and he's so well read, and he's cross-functional in that way. So perhaps not pigeonholing him in one department might be the best solution.
Donald Trump continues to certainly put the press in its place, and he's going to have the press all over him when he takes office, and the press is going to have people like Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi pretty much going after Trump through the press. It doesn't appear to me that Donald Trump's going to give much thought to those guys. I wouldn't be surprised on his first public news conference and the press is there that he doesn't say something about the press and put them back in their chair. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think Steve Bannon as counsel is so critical and how Donald Trump has handled the press. Steve Bannon, like I said, worked with Andrew Breitbart, and Andrew Breitbart knew that the press was simply a propaganda arm of the Democrat Party. Andrew Breitbart referred to the press as the Democrat media complex that needed to be torn down. Steve Bannon understands that very well. And when you look at Donald Trump's first address to the country, it came through YouTube. It didn't come through the press. And the press was outraged. They were like, we can't believe this is the first time the president hasn't consulted with us and released a statement through the press. Well, that's not how it's going to work anymore, because we've peeled back the onion. We've exposed you to be the frauds that you are. WikiLeaks has helped us do that. We understand that you were at very nice dinners with John Podesta and that you were crafting messages that were favorable for Hillary Clinton. You actually gave her veto power over many of their articles. And so we already know who the enemy is. We've identified the enemy as the press. The enemy is the press of the truth. It used to be where the press was there to find the truth, report the truth, and let the people decide based on the facts. That's no longer the case. Trump understands this. The press tried to destroy Trump and his followers early on in his campaign. And Donald Trump doesn't take that lightly and hasn't taken that lightly. And he has many of methods through social media to speak directly to the American people. And he's doing it through social media, and now he's doing it on the thank you tour. And quite frankly, the press is an afterthought, as they should be, unless they clean up their act.
Yeah, the victory lap tour is kind of interesting. It's just so unusual and so great. One last thing, I only got about a minute. There's been some conversation going on about the comparison of the emotional connection between the two campaign slogans, Stronger Together versus Make America Great Again. And it was off the charts that Make America Great Again resonated even with people who hated Trump.
Absolutely. It hits to the American spirit. And Reagan had that campaign slogan, I think it was back in '76, if I'm not mistaken. But it really speaks to the American spirit. And the American spirit of the American worker is what pushed Donald Trump to victory. We saw that at the Rust Belt states. We saw that former Democrats had flipped and gone to Trump. And that is an extraordinary anomaly, but it is because of the messaging of the Trump campaign to make America great again. And what American doesn't want to do that? Hey,
good to see you. And go to ReaganBaby.com. That's the place. And send Megan, ReaganBaby.com a nice email. Good to see you. Good to see you. Hopefully we can talk before Christmas. If not, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas and thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.